What's up, YouTube? Today is going to be part one of a new little series I'm going to be starting on the channel. My mom picked up a scooter like mine, and it's been sitting for a long time, just like the Lincoln. So it's going to need to be pretty much fully gone through, everything replaced, all the rubber, all of that kind of stuff. So we're going to be basically doing kind of like a what you would do if you bought one of these, to bring it back up to snuff, to make it rideable again, make it safe, reliable, all that good stuff. So stay tuned, we'll go ahead and get started. But first, please go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Now let's get going. Alright, so this is it right here. It says Magnum 50L 50QT-8, but if you know anything about scooters, then you know that that does not mean a damn thing. Mine says V-Laws Scoot 50, but it's an ATM 50A1, and I think a few years back they called it a Tao Pony or something. So the real name for this, at least what Tao would call it, which is the brand of scooter that mine is, they would call it a CY50A, and so that's what I'm going to be referring to it as, is either a CY50A or a VIP, because that's what the Tao version is. And you can tell that because it has this little catcher's mitt looking thing on the front. So any of these scooters that have that are going to be a CY50A with a GY6 engine. So on mine, you can kind of see right there, imported by Tao USA Inc. And then this one over here, I'm going to scoot her over a little bit. The VIN sticker is kind of blocked. I don't even remember. It was like Shunjin or something crazy. I'll pull it off later, but we're just going to refer to it as a CY50A. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so over here on the workbench, I've got an assortment of parts that I already know that we're going to need to start off with. And so I guess I should explain a little better, but we got a full key set, latches, locks, new keys, everything, or not the latches, but just the locks and keys. We got a brand new carburetor, we got some brand new fuel and vacuum line, we got a brand new belt, oil for an oil change, and some gear oil for the differential. And it is going to need tires as well, but these are the parts that we have to start with. So that's what we're going to be doing. So the reason that it needs the key set is because, of course, it did not come with any keys. A co-worker of my mom's, I guess, his daughter owned this, and she no longer cared to ride it. I guess she was terrified of riding this thing for whatever reason. To each their own, you know. But anyways, we got it with no key, and we're going to need to get all of that replaced. That's why the seat is out. So I went ahead and did some vandalism, and I destroyed it with a screwdriver and worked it around and got it unlocked. That is not a tutorial on how to break into someone else's scooter. Please do not do that. And it wasn't as easy as it sounds. But anyway, that's where we're at now. Unfortunately, in order to replace that, we're going to have to pretty much take off the entire body that wraps around it. So that'll be fun. But one thing I think I want to do is drain all of this gas out, because this gas is from like 2008, 2010. I have no idea. The scooter is a 2008, and apparently it's been sitting for at least 6 years, they said, but I would venture to guess that it's been sitting for a hell of a lot longer than that, because it only has 920 kilometers on it. So it's very possible that all of that was put on in the first year or two of ownership with this thing. and it's probably been sitting since like 2010, 2011 with absolutely nothing done to it. The good news is it definitely appears to have been kept in a garage, so that's a good sign. But I think first thing we're going to go ahead and do is pull the scooter back out here a little bit so I have some more room, and we'll go ahead and get the gas drained out of it. Alright, so we went ahead and located the fuel petcock. This is the hose that goes directly into the tank. And so I've got a little catch pan here. I wish it wasn't full of stuff already, but we'll go ahead and pull this line off. And we'll drain all of that gas out of there. That stuff is no good. It's coming out yellow and it stinks. We definitely need to get that replaced for sure. We don't want to be riding around with that. Alright, and then once the gas finished draining out, I went ahead and cut a similar length piece of hose from our new set here and installed it. Looks pretty good. It was a little difficult to get it on there on the tank side, but I think I got it on there enough. And then looking good over here. So now we're going from the petcock into this weird square shaped fuel filter and then into the carburetor next. We're probably going to drain the carburetor. This little screw, there's a screw in this thing, flathead at the bottom, and we'll go ahead and drain that as well. Alright, so I went ahead and pulled the vacuum line that goes to the intake off of the petcock and replaced that. I also took the other end of the fuel line off and replaced it as well. It's going to go into this filter, but we have that whole new hose and filter assembly on the new carburetor. So I'm going to drain out this carburetor now, and then we'll probably go ahead and remove that. Alright, so I went ahead and replaced the PCV hose as well and put that cover deal back on it. I did have to make a slight modification here so that I could still use the same hose. I just put this in there to make it smaller, and because the other one was a little large on this side. The hose size is the same, but it opens up more over here, so I just went ahead and replaced that as well. So we've got all of our fuel, vacuum, PCV lines replaced. Looking good. Alright, so I went ahead and tried to drain the carburetor, but it looks like there was no need because it was totally empty. So then I went ahead and cut the factory zip tie that's right around here. It holds a bunch of wires up in that area. Pretty much all of these are just like that. And I did that so that I could unplug the carburetor enricher. It's basically like an electronic choke. Then I went ahead and loosened the 12mm nuts holding the throttle cable in right here. And then you can push the throttle open like that, and then you can kind of see that hole right by my finger, and with it open you should be able to slide it out. And so I also went ahead and tried to loosen this clamp, but it looks like that's stripped out, so hopefully it'll just pull out and push back in, otherwise you might have to replace that. Then I got this clamp off as well. So I believe the only thing that we still have to do, which we may not have to, but it makes it easier, is if we come in here and remove those two 10mm bolts, that'll remove the entire airbox assembly, and it'll make it easier to get the carburetor out. Alright guys, so in order to get the old carburetor out, I had to break this damn clamp. That Phillips screw was done for. So that's trash. And then we got the old carb right here, and so I went ahead and set the new one in place. We'll go ahead and get it all hooked up now. I also want to throw out there, the reason I'm replacing the carburetor is I'm just assuming that because it's set for so long that the insides of it are all gummed up and varnished up, and These things are a pain in the ass to clean, whether it's this carburetor or any carburetor, and I just want to save myself the hour of time and the trial and error of putting it back on, and maybe you didn't get it quite cleaned out enough. I'd rather just start with a clean slate and put a brand new carburetor on there. It's basically just a stock carb. No gas has ever gone through it, so we shouldn't have to worry about any of the holes being clogged up or anything like that. These carburetors are only like 20 bucks, so if you're doing something similar to what I'm doing on your own scooter, I would strongly advise to just simply replace the carburetor, because they're that cheap. It's just not worth pulling it all apart and trying to clean it. Trust me, I've tried it many times. So anyway, got the carburetor installed, we got the new clamp tightened up. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the throttle cable back on. I also got the fuel hose from the petcock hooked up. I thought about replacing this with a piece of the blue line, but I'm not going to worry about that. And I'm also, the drain hose right here is slightly different than the stock one. The stock one has like a spring on it, and it bolts up down here on that last bottom bolt here on the CVT case, but I'm not really worried about that. We rarely use the carburetor drain feature, and even if we did want to, it's really not too difficult to get to. There's just a flathead screw right next to it, kind of where my finger's pointing, and I feel pretty confident that if I had to, I could get in there with a screwdriver and drain that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the throttle cable back in, and then I'm gonna go ahead and put the air box back on as well. Just a little tip: if you're having trouble getting your air duct back on because it's super stiff, and this tip will work for cars too, go ahead and heat it up with a heat gun. That'll make the rubber extremely soft, and it should go on no problem. This is nice and hot. I know that the throttle's the same size, but it's a little stiff, and I was having trouble getting it on, so I should be able to slide it on there pretty easily now. Alright, so we finally got everything put back on, air box and all. So we'll just do a quick recap of everything we did here. Went ahead and removed the air box. We removed and replaced all of these rubber hoses here, from the tank to the petcock, from the petcock to the fuel filter, from the fuel filter to the carburetor, from the intake to the petcock, as well as our valve cover to air intake for the PCV. I also went ahead and twisted this. You can kind of see where my finger is. I pointed it more towards the right side of the scooter instead of pointing up, because it seemed like the hose was less likely to kink. We got our 12mm nuts all tightened up on the throttle cable, as well as having the cable installed into the carburetor. And when I pull the throttle lever, you can definitely see it moving, so that is working properly. Went ahead and replaced our factory zip tie up here, as well as plugging in the carburetor connector for the enricher. So everything is all finished up. We've officially replaced all of the rubber hoses on the vehicle, as well as the carburetor. So the entire air induction and fuel system and PCV system have been serviced. That's going to be the end of the video for today. Please come back for part 2, where we'll be installing some more of the assortment of parts over there that you saw on the workbench. Please go ahead and like the video. If you're into scooters too and you're part of the scooter gang, leave a comment below. And please subscribe to the channel if you have not already. It really greatly helps me out. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers on the channel by August 23rd, which will be my 1-year anniversary of YouTube. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time.